my drama presentation is on kabuki theatre. Kabuki is a traditional form of Japanese theatre. It originated in 1603 and is one of the three most popular traditions in Japan alongside No and the Raku. Kabuki, when translated, means song dance technique, and it is a form of Japanese musical theatre which has elaborate costumes and makeup, as well as stylised dancing, music and acting. So you can see how the definition actually relates very much to how the play is actually performed. It was created by Izumu no Ukuni, who was a female shrine attendant for the Great Shrine of Izumo. And as creating Kabuki, Kabuki and her became very popular, as most of the plays were of popular parodies of Buddhist prayers, as well as having exotic skits and outlandish cross-dressing, which created a lot of popularity for her. Alongside this exotic skits and cross-dressing, provoked in havoc upon the theatre, also because the female actors were prostitutes. So the Tokugawa shogunate, the Japanese government at the time, enforced restrictions upon Kabuki, making so that women were banned from performing anymore. As a result, men performed Kabuki and had to perform the female roles. However, then the male actors also became prostitutes, so they had to enforce their restrictions even further, to the extent where now only old male actors can perform, and only to perform strictly theatrical dramas. Kudogo are the assistants who dress in black on the stage. You can see him here. They are regarded as non-existent. They are there to help give actors the props and take them away, as well as helping with costume changes. And they are dressed in black, as all of the outfits that are worn in Kabuki are very decorative and elaborate, as I said earlier. Recently, 7 compilations of acting reviews of Kabuki have been found in a storeroom of Mizonoza, an old theatre. And one of the comments was, "Excellent performance. It was always as if a real woman was on stage and her movements were lithe." In terms of the staging of Kabuki, you see here the long walkway, and here as well. This is called the Hanamichi, and it was designed for actors to enter and exit onto the stage whilst drawing attention to themselves, allowing anything that needed to be changed on the actual stage. Some of the stages would have revolving platforms or trapdoors, allowing for quick scene changes and actors to suddenly appear and disappear. You can see here, the backdrop here is very decorative, and the backdrop would remain the same throughout the entirety of the performance, as it's set in one location, which just made everything a lot easier for them. Onagata are the male actors who perform the female roles, and they are essentially experts in playing women. It was believed that only a man could so perfectly portray a woman, and that they could portray the delicate nuances of feminine lifestyle, that women would even go to the theatre to learn elegant deportment and feminine charm from him. So it's very much the idea that the male beliefs within Japan at the time enforced the way that women were portrayed on stage. And I have a video here from Tamasaburo Bando, who's a famous Kabuki performer of Onagata, commenting on this feature very briefly, if it wants to work. So the people performing Onagata would have to perform this as an entire lifetime, much like in Greek shadow puppetry, where they had the puppet masters who were experts in that field in particular, and would perform that for the entirety of their career, much like men performing Onagata. It doesn't look like my video is going to work, which is very not helpful. It was essentially Tamasaburo Bando saying that it was the male attitudes that influenced the way in which women were presented in theatre. And these are some examples of the costumes that women would wear. Obviously, what I am wearing is not quite the same. You can see the elaborate detail of these and the long sleeves, as the long sleeves were used often for women to hide their faces behind, often it was quite impolite to see women's teeth, and also when they were crying as well, women had to cover their face with their sleeves. You can also see they were quite long, and they had to cover their feet as well, as this is also another gesture which was seen as impolite. You could say that the bands around the mid region over here could be used to show the fact that they are a woman. Obviously, as they are played by men, the physical characteristics are very different. So this could be used as an indicator that actually this is a woman. In terms of the way that women in kabuki move, it all have to be very gracious and very elegant, which is quite different to Western theatre in a sense, particularly through the walking. In Western theatre, stereotypically, women would often have tight clothing and would move their hips quite a lot as they were walking to accentuate them, as it would create a bigger ratio between the hip to waist, which is apparently what men find attractive, having a bigger ratio. So women in Western theatre would often move their hips more when they were walking. However, in kabuki, when they walk, their hips do not swing and they are meant to flow. Again, reinforcing the idea of elegance and beauty. So I think this is quite interesting to see the difference between the two cultures of what they find ideal in a woman. In terms of how else they walk, they would have to lower their right shoulder as they were walking with their right foot and tilt their head as well. So they'd have to walk like the same on the left as well. Obviously I'm not doing it very well, but you can get the idea. Also, as I said, that it was very impolite for women to show their teeth. So when laughing, they would have to put their hand over their face and outstretch their forefinger and have to laugh like this. So actually you can't see my teeth at all. I'm smiling. Additionally, in terms of sitting, this is also meant to be very elegantly done. So they're meant to sort of swoosh their kimono under themselves as they go to sit down and sit roughly like that. If women had their hands at the top of their thighs, it meant that they were young. If they're at the bottom, it meant that they were very old women. So I think it's very interesting to see the subtle differences to actually tell a lot about the age of a character. Obviously, as it's played by men, they've got a lot of makeup on as well, and the headdresses. So it's not always very easy to tell the age of the female simply through their costume and makeup. So the subtle differences there I found to be very interesting. In terms of the play, which I will be discussing, it's a play called Reizan, and the female in it is called Kofuji. And I think it's very interesting to actually note the classification of kabuki plays first of all, as they're very different to Western classification, as they are not based upon types of drama such as tragedy, comedy, farce or melodrama, but are defined by areas of subject matter. So I found an interesting parallel between the two. So one line in which Kofuji says is, "But let us be together, at least in our dreams," as she falls down weeping. Obviously, as it's a song dance technique, these lines would be sung. I'm not going to sing them. I'm focusing more on the movement of the women. So from learning about how they move, have to be very elegant and graceful, I had to interpret how a woman would fall. Again, trying to be as graceful as I can possibly be. So to fall down, I would go like this, as it's still very slow and it doesn't make a very big sound when she falls to the floor. And then again with weeping, as I said, they would often cover their faces with their sleeves. This is a bit of a short sleeve, but they'd have to cover them like this and make very little sound to portray the idea of weeping. So in the line, she would say, "But let us be together, at least in our dreams," and fall down and then weep. And then later on, after finding out that Reizan was actually her father, she declares, "Oh father," and gets up. Obviously, the line, "Oh father," is an exclamation of joy. However, I had to take into account the idea of the grace and elegance of a kabuki actress as well. So on this line, "Oh father," I'd have to get up as well, gracefully, and without injuring myself and clicking my knee, which I've already done today. So I would go, "Oh Father," and get up very gradually, and still trying to be as elegant as possible. Obviously, as I said, the female actors of kabuki are experts at this, and so they have practiced this for a very long time. Obviously, I've not had the time to perfect the kabuki movements. In terms of its correlation to other theatres, kabuki very much relates to commedia dell'arte, as neither of them use scripts, and it's passed down simply through oral tradition. And as I said, the correlation between Greek shadow puppetry and kabuki is that the puppet masters spend their lifetimes mastering the art of the puppet movement, similarly to the male actors being on a gata. In terms of its connection to English Renaissance theatre, neither of them allowed women to perform, as in English Renaissance, it was believed that it would be too tempting to see a female body displayed in such a way, and if it were displayed in this manner, it would be considered immoral, much like how women were actually banned from kabuki as a result of the promiscuous past and how it raised havoc in the theatre with its tempting and sensual nature. In terms of the impact this has had on me as an actor, I've been able to draw parallels between other theatre traditions that I'm aware of and kabuki, and seeing the influences behind it, as No and Raku both influenced kabuki theatre as well. I've also learned how to use subtle gestures to show the character, as I said about having the hands higher up of the thigh and lower to tell the age. So I found that it makes me as an actor less reliant on my speech and my costume, and more within the subtleties of the gestures. It's also taught me how, when portraying a female character, that it doesn't need to be extremely overt and obvious, and it can be more gracious and elegant approach towards it. And that is my presentation and my sources.